This session is now more technically about the business itself. First session on change was very much about helping you think about the personal responsibility of being a social entrepreneur, an entrepreneur. So this is about you now potentially starting to think about designing your business. What ideas have you actually got? How could you change the business? And this means that you're the kind of grand architect of what's called the business model. And business models are the fundamentals of the organization, how it ticks, how it works. And various different stakeholders will look at your business model from different angles. So in the UK, I work with social enterprises, particularly around them looking for investment so that they can grow. And an investor will look for four things. They'll look for a very clear mission, so that they know that that mission is really what drives you, and you're not just going to suddenly do something else tomorrow. They're going to look at your business model, and they're going to want to know how you actually make the money and the value flow around the business, how you deploy people to task, what you actually do, who do you need to work with you to make it a success, what assets and resources do you need to bring into play to be able to do the things that you promise a group of customers. And they're also then going to look at the competence of your management to see whether you're actually capable of managing that model. And from your strategies and the way that you communicate with them, they're going to want to know how and where you put that model in the marketplace. Where do you fit in the marketplace? And people will ask you for something called a business case, I'm sure, as you develop your entrepreneurial career. And that can be something you do on a page. It's a very, very sharp, short communication tool about this is the need or the opportunity that I've identified. This is what the market currently does about that issue and the dynamics in the market, the big players, where the market's going. And here is my competitive position in the marketplace. This is what I'm going to offer and where I'm going to put myself. And that can be a page. But behind that, it's about business model. How does the business model actually work? I just want to share a few experiences about why that's quite powerful. I said before that I was mentoring some entrepreneurs across the Mediterranean region. And one of them's running a theatre company in Palestine. And they've been doing it quite a while. I think maybe 10 or 15 years. And they've had a lot of grant funding because a lot of grant funding has flowed towards Palestine. Well, there are two things that have changed in Palestine's fortunes in the last year or two. One is there's probably going to be less funding because there's less funding everywhere. And the second thing is Palestinians are starting to think about beyond this transitional phase that they're in, actually having a state. They actually, quite a few Palestinians I met want to start behaving as if they have this state to make it happen, to be the change they want to see, as Gandhi said. So they're looking at their business model and saying, we need potentially to change our model from one which is so dependent on grants, but also one that's so dependent on the current situation of Palestine. We want to help build a country, not just be involved in human rights for the issues they have today. And we were looking at a business model, and they decided very creatively that maybe the experience of theatre would help people in companies learn about change, communication, strategy, problem solving. So they thought, could we sell theatre as a consultancy product? Could we actually say, we will come and work with you for 5 days and engage you in our theatre and help you identify communications, development, all this kind of stuff. It's a great idea on the face of it. And when they did their market research, something stood out, which is that consultancy in Palestine, a bit like Cyprus, is not highly valued. And when they did their financial models, they thought they would probably be able to get $150 a day. But they still continued to do it all and said, look, we're going to become a social enterprise. We're going to develop this model at $150 a day. And in just a simple conversation that we were having, I said, why would you bother to do that for $150 a day? All the effort you're going to need to market the service, to deliver a fantastic experience for people, but only be able to bill $150 a day. Imagine how much of that you're going to have to do to actually produce some income for the things you want to do. So we looked at the business model, and the thing that changed for them was, why were they focusing on selling to the company? When they sold to the company, they were going to sell once, one day, to one company. And they might have 6 or 7 people from that company coming to the theatre. So they started to think about, what if we could actually aim at each one of those 7 people? What if they could actually build a model that was about, do you work in Palestine? Do you, as an individual professional, want to learn about communication, change management, problem solving? Is there any value in companies being mixed up and also meeting people from other companies? Could they get 10 or 12 people to pay $150 each? And in that simple twist, they'd gone from potentially looking at $150 a day to maybe much more than that, because the model had shifted from being business to business back to business to customer. So this is a not-for-profit. This is not, big shareholding company, but they started to use business modeling techniques to actually look at, they were going to put the same effort in. They would probably have more ideas about the marketing because they were already used to selling to individuals. And this reminded me a lot of my own social enterprise. The time was about 2007, where we were also focusing on selling a membership service to organizations. And organizations were under the same pressure we were, and were just not really willing to pay very much to be the member of somebody else. And what that was doing, it was dragging down what we could actually offer them, because we had such a small budget. We did very basic things, which had the added effect of them becoming less and less involved in us. And we made the same twist. There were 1,500 people working in all of our customer groups. If we could sell to them individually, we could earn much more. And over the course of 3 years, we went from earning about £3,000 a year to 90,000. But also the type of work that we were doing was much more, it excited us a lot more. It required a lot more skills. It required a lot more of our creativity. We actually wanted to do it more. So business modeling is about redesigning how your business fits together. And the best way of doing that is to visualize what you're doing. Like paint your business like a canvas. To step outside of it. It's not a desk-based exercise, it's something you can do together. It's a very creative exercise. I think I've spoken for about 5 or 10 minutes. There's a question time bit here. Does anybody have any questions at this time?
How can we identify a business model?
Sorry?
A new business model, how can we identify it?
Do you mean, how do you find one?
Yeah.
Through experimentation. Prototyping.
How many times?
How many times what? To prototype?
Yeah.
It's up to you.
And what if it fails?
Do another one. Keep trying, yeah. I mean, why sort of polish something so that you think it works? All business plans are theories. People spend weeks and weeks when you say, what are you doing? I'm doing my business plan. Okay, so what are you actually doing? Well, I'm filling out this business plan template. That's not a very empowering exercise, actually, to lock yourself away and do that. If you say to me you were doing like market research, analysing something, reading, getting trends, fine, that's something else. But a lot of people, they produce these business plans and they're just theories. And then they go straight into the market and then they find out whether they're onto something or not and regularly fail and fail harder. So prototyping is a way of putting your foot in the water. We've just launched a product in the organisation in the UK, and we're prototyping it with some of the customers that we trust to give us the best feedback. so that we can actually then learn whether it works and then use that learning to actually design the marketing for actually taking a risk on brand new customers. So a really good way of finding a new business model is to design one and then prototype it. Suck it and see, as we say.
And what was the change you made to make 90,000 per year instead of 3,000?
We swapped from aiming at business to business and going back to personal services, personal professional services. So instead of me approaching a chief executive and saying, would you pay a membership to be part of my organisation, we'd say, what can we do for you as a chief executive? We'll do this for free, this for £100 a year, this for 500. And can I also speak to your head of HR and your finance director and your service managers, because we've got an offer for them as well. And we had to make an offer to them that was worth them paying it out of their own money, not out of the organisation's money.
Instead of giving them a service and asking them to pay for it, you ask them what services would you like?
Sometimes, but that's another really interesting point about business models and things. There's a lot of things that have been invented that when people did market research on them, the market research said don't bother. The mobile phone, for example, was a don't bother. The hands-free set was a don't bother. Post-it notes came from prototyping. And they've made lots of money. But someone said, what I actually need is a piece of paper that I can stick to the wall, so give me a piece of glue and put it on the paper. And as soon as they did that and thought, if we just put these in a pack, bosh, they'd done it. No massive amount of market research or things like that. So I think it is very important to understand what your customer wants. That doesn't always mean asking them. But of course, there's nothing wrong with asking customers. But they might just give you a different answer than they would if you engage them in a different way. Any more questions at this stage?
The change you made that increased the profit, does it necessarily mean that it will increase the efficiency and what you give to those companies, or sometimes just increasing profit doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to have a greater impact, as the services you're going to give are not going to have such a great impact as they had before?
I think for us, it's simplified our business because we enjoyed and we got it more accurate working out what individual customers would value.
So it wasn't just profit-driven decision you made?
No. You know, the profits always come later. I think you have to be driven to make them because that's profit, and we'll talk in another session. Profit's really important. Even if you're a not-for-profit, that's your freedom, that money, you know, to do with as you wish. That's your investment money. That's the money you don't have to ask anyone for. So even if you're a not-for-profit, that's really important money. For us, as I've seen in a number of enterprises in the UK where they provide services to the government, for example, which will be much less relevant here in Cyprus, smaller economy, etc. The relationship with a government is so complex, it makes you very inefficient. It makes you less creative, less innovative. And there's a revolution going on in the UK where the government would actually like to give the individual people a budget. So instead of saying, here's 50 old people, they need 12 hours care a day, can you provide 12 times 50? They'll give each of those old people a budget and say, you need 12 hours care a day. Go and buy it. And a lot of the social organisations in the UK are resisting that because they quite like getting that big chunk of money. But actually it's less efficient that way because they're getting their big chunk of money from someone, but actually their main customer over here is an individual. They shouldn't be grouping them together like that. So for us, it simplified what we did, and that made us more efficient. And it made us deliver a bigger impact. So aiming for a profit by getting things simple, and that can actually help you achieve other impacts as well. I hope that's a good question. Any other questions? Okay. Then what I was going to show you is a tool that it's not my tool, it's designed by a guy called Alex Osterwalder. There's a very cool book he produced, and there's a number of online websites that you can use for this. But we first started to use this tool with people that had no business experience. And we were very impressed with how easy it helped them start to build business ideas to begin with. And I started to use this tool the other way round. So instead of actually using it to build a business or a new product or a new service, when I would actually interact with a competitor or with a client, I'd use it to actually work out what their business model was. Because when I asked them, most of the time they said, I can't understand what you're talking about. I don't know what you mean, business model. So you could ask them questions and build it up. Okay, so this is what I'm going to show you. And you might want to write this down because, I mean, you could be business modeling on the bus on the way home. So the business model are the building blocks of a viable business. Whether it's a social enterprise or a for-profit business, a school, a university, it doesn't matter. Any sort of enterprise is based on 9 fundamental building blocks. There can be more, but the minimum is 9. And you can draw this. This is as simple as it gets. Lines on a page, if you want, in your book. And I'm going to go through each one of these. So bang smack in the middle of this canvas is what's called the value proposition, which very simply is, what are you offering? What problem are you offering to solve? What idea do you have that meets someone's needs? Why are you better? In a nutshell, what are you offering? Okay? That is the heart of your business. That is the mission that we were saying people are looking for before. It's not quite the same as vision, because vision is what you hope to achieve by doing this thing. But your value proposition is, what is your core offer? I should be able to get it like that. And it goes central in the middle of the diagram. For whom? Customer group. Those doing marketing, they call them segments. But whose problem are you solving? Which group of people? How are they similar? How are they different? Which ones pay? Which ones don't? One of the things when I was doing my MBA and I researched social enterprises providing services to the government was that they had very simple value propositions, very simple missions, to empower disabled young people. But they had very complicated business models, and one of the reasons was they had lots and lots of different customer groups, but not the same way as a for-profit business did, where they were all paying. They had lots of people who weren't paying, and they were being paid for by someone else. So the government was paying for the young people, for example. So actually that meant you had to have 2 value propositions. One for the people that weren't paying, and one for the people that were paying. So automatically your business was twice as complicated. But this goes on the right-hand side of this diagram. Is you list out who you're solving a problem for or meeting a need for, your customer groups, and the segments if there are some. Then you work out who are the organizations or people that are absolutely necessary to you being able to deliver this value proposition to these customers. So if you're going to be delivering a new type of tea, a key partner is going to be where you get your tea from. Because if they let you down, you're out of business. Many organizations overlook this and don't think about who they want to do business with and on what terms. And another thing I noticed about quite a few social enterprises I've worked with is they've got a really long list of people in this box as well. And managing these relationships can cost a lot of money. So I did an analysis of one organisation, for example, which had a turnover of about 1.2 million. And they were interested in growing into another area of the country. And we worked out that 20% of their time was spent on managing the relationship they had in the existing area. And they had no plan to increase the amount of capacity they had. So they worked out quite quickly that their profits in the new area were just going to get spent on managing the relationships in that area. I was involved in another organisation that grew this way. And they went from operating in one area to 6 and within another year they went bust. They just couldn't manage all the relationships, but they'd never even mapped who they were going to have a relationship with, how much time it took, that sort of thing. So it's a really important box. Who do you actually need fundamentally to keep this working? So now you have a value proposition, a team aiming to provide to this customer group. Now you have to work out what relationship do you need to develop with those customers to transfer that value proposition. Is it a confidential relationship? Is it a distant relationship through the internet? Is it an intimate relationship? Is it a group relationship or one-to-one? Is it a repeat relationship you need? These type of things. And you can draw on all the skills that you will learn in marketing and stuff like that to work that out. But you've got to work out, what do these customers actually need me to act like and behave like? Because that's the kind of culture you're going to have to develop within the business. Okay? And that goes there. So value proposition to this customer group through this relationship. And this is, how do I reach these customers? How do I actually get them to know about this value proposition? And it creates a circle on this side of creating value for these customers. I have value, I can reach you, this customer group, and I'll build this relationship with you. And there is a loop, and that will inform me whether I need to change my value proposition or whatever. All this side of your business model is about value for customers, making change happen, building relationships and strategies. Those of you that do marketing, underneath here is marketing strategy. Customer segmentation, customers' decision-making processes, customer relationship management, channel strategies, distribution strategies. You know, are some of your distributors going to become your main partners? Some entire business models fit into that channel box. Would Amazon, for example, be a channel for all the other people that are selling stuff? Their whole business model fits into a channel. Key activities. What are you actually going to do? What are you going to do to deliver the value proposition to those customers? What are you going to do to build those relationships? And what are you going to do to actually make those channels work for you? Goes here. What resources are you going to need? The assets, your knowledge, the database, the intellectual property, the network you've got, the really good relationships with these suppliers, the office, 14 staff working at home, 14 staff working at an office. All of this side is where your costs are going to come from. So again, an investor will already be thinking, or an accountant will be looking at this side and thinking, how can I get this side down to the bare minimum? So all of you doing Six Sigma and Lean and this, all on this side, how can I get the actual processes to be as lean as possible, as streamlined as possible, get the costs down? Because when you put it all together, all of the things on the right, because you're generating value, are going to identify for you what your revenue streams are from creating value. So like in that example that I gave about the theatre company, is it businesses in Palestine or is it professionals in Palestine? And what revenue streams am I actually creating? Is it one-off? Is it repeat? And you can put the numbers in there. And beyond that is your budgeting for your income and your cash flow forecasting. And all of the left-hand side of the business model is going to create cost from creating value. As long as the one on the right is bigger than the one on the left, you're all right. You're all right. You're in profit. Even if you are not for profit, why would you possibly want the one on the left to be bigger than the one on the right? Even if you're not profit, why would you just want them to be the same? To break even? Where's the fun in that? Where's the safety in that? You know? Maybe, for example, if you could actually increase some of the revenue streams you spent last time fundraising. Numbers might stay the same, but actually, because you were creating sustainable value, the money was coming in, and it wasn't reliant on you having in the resources box a €30,000 a year fundraiser, for example. So these are the 9 fundamentals of a business model, presented visually. In a team, you could put it on a wall, you could post-it note this, you could do it in the back of your book, you could do it literally at the traffic lights. It can be that quick. The point is you're trying to create value. Social value or economic value, same thing. And a social enterprise may consider putting in another bottom line. A number of social benefits in the income side and a number of social costs. Maybe a number of environmental benefits and some environmental costs. And as businesses get further forward, they will start to tax things like your environmental footprint. So you will start to at least count your environmental costs. But many social enterprises would use this canvas and maybe include in the income their social income as well. Numbers of jobs created, number of opinions changed, as important to you as income, because you know you're achieving something. But also some of those things can have costs. Creating a job for somebody can put someone else out of a job, for example. Business modelling, really simple, but the power is in visualising things and thinking more like a designer than a business student. Any questions?
I think that the business model canvas can replace the business plan.
I have seen some organisations run on this. There was a guy that I helped do a crowdfunding campaign recently. He was a restaurant manager. He was very depressed in the restaurant because he was really talented, but they wouldn't listen to him. And so he said, I'm thinking of walking out of my job. And I said, what are you going to do? And he said, I don't know. And he was going to become unemployed. But he is a fantastic Italian cook. Not really a chef. This guy makes things from scratch. The pasta, everything. The cakes is fantastic. And he said, what I would really love to do is to basically have Italian street food in London, because you can get Mexican street food, Chinese street food. You can't get an Italian, because in Britain, an Italian is a restaurant or a pizzeria or a pasta house. But he wants to do Italian street food. And we just used this. And he worked out all his figures beneath this on post-it notes and that sort of stuff. And he worked up a business that he would be able to earn in the first year maybe £25,000. And with some growth, £40,000. That was the only business plan. But he'd been to other people that had said, you must produce me a full business plan. But he was like, I don't really know how to do the market research. I mean, no one does Italian street food. I just want to do it even if they don't like it, I want to try it out. Like prototyping. Because we worked out, as long as he could get 20 people to visit every hour, he'd break even. So it was about finding somewhere with at least 20 people going past. So it was a very simple decision. I need to put my market stall there. Once it hits a certain amount, money, 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 as per business model. So yes, I do think that this can replace aspects of business planning, because it is a way of business planning, because you're actually business designing. What I've also seen it used very usefully for is if you want to redesign part of your business, a new service, a new department, or whatever. And you can do, depending on how much this is based on assumptions, you have to do the work beneath them. But it's a good framework. And it's probably, a lot of people have said to me, tell me the best business plan template to use. And I've just never found one. But this is better in my view. Design the business and then do the extra work you need to do. Any other questions? Scalable as well, you see. You can talk about a market stall, or you can talk about a multi-million-pound IT company. Same model, same fundamentals.
I actually googled this, and there are business templates for Google and Amazon on the internet, and it's very simple.
Yeah, that's their business plan.
I mean, it's one of the first things that comes up, and it's really simple.
Yeah. I mean, you think they make billions and billions and billions of dollars a year, and they've got this and some post-it notes on it. Help people search the web. That's it. But think about all the new revenue streams that they've developed. Again, using the same tool. How can we make adverts pay? How can we make... Think about Facebook's challenge about how we're all using our phone. So is that the reason now why we have the ads just in our timeline, whether we like them or not? Someone just thought if we could just put it in there, and then they've modelled it, and now they're making millions of pounds out of mobile phone advertising. Everyone was predicting it was going to bring the company to its knees. Months later, problem's gone. But this is a really good tool used in reverse. So when you're doing your competitor analysis, when you're trying to work out why does that restaurant work, how does that restaurant work, how does that business work, why are they better than me, you can ask these questions. What's their value proposition? What channels are they using? Whose customers are they going for? What relationship are they building? It helps you respect your competitors, work out what their strengths are. And it's also a very good tool for joint ventures. In effect, you've got two companies coming together, you want to collaborate. How could we collaborate? What value could we provide together? And you have it as a framework for a joint venture. Any other questions? That was visualizing business models.